Indeed. I wonder if the moment may be upon us.
Oh, it's gonna be one of those videos. Darth Maul,
Formerly Darth, now just Maul,
is one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. I mean, if you've watched Clone Wars and Rebels, how could he not be? And today I want to put some respect on Maul's name. Because while the character is very powerful, he seemingly loses a lot for someone that's supposedly so high tier, and well, it's a bit complicated. This video has been a long time coming, especially for those Maul fans in the Key Issues Discord server. Shout out Tylearn. We've been discussing the power of Maul for a while, and it might finally be time to share.
Use my knowledge, I beg you.
So with all that being said, how powerful is Maul? Maul was born on the dark side nexus of Dathomir. He was one of 3 male children born to the leader of the Night Sisters, the exceptionally powerful Mother Talzin. If you've played Star Wars Jedi Survivor, then you've seen just how powerful Night Sisters can become, but Talzin wasn't just any Night Sister, she was the matriarch, the most powerful of them all, one who could contend with the likes of Mace Windu and even Darth Sidious. So Maul's bloodline and natural affinity for the Force would make him one of the most coveted talents in the galaxy. In the year 40 BBY, when Maul was just a child, Sidious visited Dathomir to expand his knowledge of the dark side of the Force, and in his meeting with Talzin, he expressed interest in taking her as his Sith apprentice. However, upon meeting her son Maul, he sensed much more potential in him than her, so he stole Maul and fled. This is very important to note, as when at her full strength, Talzin is able to go head-to-head with some of the most powerful Force users during the Clone Wars. However, Maul's full potential is stated to be much higher than his mother's. So for years, Maul would train under Sidious in the ways of the dark side, eventually earning the title of Darth and becoming Sidious's right hand. As Sidious planned to overthrow the Jedi and rule the galaxy with Darth Maul at his side, the young Zabrak had to not just be good, he had to be the best. Powerful enough to take down the most intimidating Jedi Masters, such as Mace Windu or even Master Yoda. To that end, Sidious was relentless with their training sessions. Darth Maul is stated to be one of the most dangerous and highly trained Sith in the history of the Sith Order. However, Maul's rigorous training sessions could not satiate his bloodlust and disdain for the Jedi Order because they never came for him. He was so incredibly powerful, his potential greater than most, but he felt that he was neglected, ignored, and deemed unworthy by the Jedi. To temper his lust for battle, Sidious allowed him to travel the galaxy and challenge the most dangerous beings he could find, which included a pack of living murder machines, Rathtars. Of course, Maul was not allowed to brandish his lightsaber in the fear that he may be spotted, so he used a simple poleaxe to dispatch the deadly creatures. While Maul was able to let some of his pent-up aggression out hunting monsters, he was still left unsatisfied. Eventually, Darth Maul wound up in a situation where he had to work alongside a Jedi Padawan, where the two fought together to defeat a group of bounty hunters, but they both knew that they would come to blows shortly after. In the battle, Maul was tested, but ultimately came out on top, remarking that the Padawan was worthy of knighthood and likely would have been knighted shortly after their duel had she survived. But even dueling and slaying a Jedi left Maul unsatisfied. He was still bloodthirsty for the Jedi, which Sidious was all too pleased to hear. Following this, Darth Maul would continue his Sith training on Malachor, learning to truly master his hate and rage, turning himself into a living weapon. Years passed like this until finally it was time for the Sith to reveal themselves to the Jedi.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
You have been well trained, my young apprentice. They will be no match for you.
To avoid explaining Sidious's long and convoluted plot, which may take hours, I'll summarize it by saying Sidious needed Padme to sign a treaty. so he dispatched Darth Maul to track her down. Once he did, Darth Maul engaged in a duel with Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and bullied the Jedi Master into submission and forced him to either retreat or die. While this duel is brief, we can see how much of a toll it took on the Jedi Master just to keep up with Darth Maul for around 30 seconds. After jumping to safety, Qui-Gon collapsed on the floor, exhausted, pushed to the brink, stating that Maul was
well trained in the Jedi arts.
Various guidebooks, as well as the Star Wars databank, give us more insight into this brief battle, with statements telling us that Maul nearly killed Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon only defied Maul by exerting the greatest effort. Meanwhile, Darth Maul wasn't even going all out. As we all know, Darth Maul's lightsaber is double-bladed, and he's at his best with both blades illuminated, where he becomes a whirlwind of death. However, Qui-Gon almost died to Maul using only one blade and keeping his Sith cloak on. Qui-Gon is touted as a master of multiple lightsaber forms, especially Form 4, Ataru, and Form 3, Suresu, combining them to become a master at not only attack, but defense as well. Despite his mastery of lightsaber combat, Qui-Gon was left battered and beaten by Maul after, again, just 30 seconds. Eventually, Darth Maul would come face to face with the Jedi Master again. However, this time Qui-Gon's apprentice, Obi-Wan Kenobi, would join the battle. But Darth Maul isn't fazed. He duels the two Jedi simultaneously, keeping them on the back foot nearly the entire duel. And for more context on how much Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are really struggling, here are some more quotes. "So this is a Sith Lord," Obi-Wan thought, fleetingly, as he dodged and leaped. It was taking every skill he knew just to stay alive. Slowly, the Sith Lord forced Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan back. The Sith Lord's moves were incredible. He is fighting the two Jedi at once, flipping into the air, outmaneuvering them at every turn. Together, they were able to hold their own against the Sith Lord, but their efforts at attack, at assuming the offensive against this dangerous adversary, were woefully inadequate. Jedi Knights, the enemies of the Sith for millennia. Darth Maul had worked and trained all his life for a chance to meet a Jedi Knight in combat. It was an added bonus that he was able to engage too. He had no fear for himself, no doubt he would win. He was focused in a way that Qui-Gon recognized at once, a Jedi's focus, mindful of the present, locked in on what was needed in the here and now. The Sith Lord was a living example of what the Jedi Master was always telling Obi-Wan about, how best to hear the will of the Force. The three combatants fought their way across the hangar floor, lightsabers flashing, bringing to bear every skill they had acquired over the years. The Jedi Knights tried continually to press the attack, and indeed, the Sith Lord was moving away from the Naboo and the starfighters and back towards the hangar's far wall. But Qui-Gon recognized that while it might seem as if the Jedi were driving him before them, it was the Sith Lord who was controlling the struggle, wheeling and spinning, leaping and somersaulting with astonishing ease. His agility and dexterity allowed him to keep them both at bay, constantly attacking while at the same time effectively blunting their counterattacks. Qui-Gon pressed hard in the beginning, sensing how dangerous this man was, wanting to put an end to the combat. The Sith Lord was supple and quick, and he worked his way between the Jedi with confidence and ease, whipping his two-ended lightsaber back and forth between them, more than holding his own against their efforts to bring him down. He was skilled. Anakin saw more skilled, perhaps, than the men he faced, and he was confident in a way that was disturbing. He would not be overcome easily. So Darth Maul controlled the fight, despite Qui-Gon going all out to try and end it quickly. Maul toyed with them, leading them to where he wanted the battle to proceed, and once they arrived, Darth Maul split the pair, taking on the more skilled and the more powerful Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn alone. Maul handled his business easily, which brought out dark emotions within Obi-Wan, who was fueled by rage when he went at Darth Maul alone. However, Maul won this duel as well. Here are some more quotes. "The battle wore on, and for a time it was fought evenly, but Darth Maul was the stronger of the two and was driven by a frenzy that surpassed even the frantic determination that fueled Obi-Wan. Eventually, the Sith Lord began to wear the young Jedi down. Bit by bit, he pressed him back, carrying the attack to him, looking to catch him off guard. Obi-Wan could sense his body weakening, and his fear of what it would mean if he too were to fall began to grow. Sensing his opportunity slipping away from him and his strength waning, Obi-Wan mounted a final assault. He rushed the Sith Lord with a series of side blows designed to bring the two-bladed lightsaber horizontal. He then feinted an attack to his enemy's left and brought his own lightsaber over and downward with such force that he severed the other's weapons. Crying out in fury, he cut triumphantly at the Sith Lord's horned head, a killing blow, and missed completely. Darth Maul, anticipating the maneuver, had stepped smoothly away. Discarding the lesser half of his severed weapon, he counterattacked swiftly, striking at Obi-Wan with enough force that he knocked the young Jedi sideways and off balance. Quickly, he struck again, harder still, and this time Obi-Wan lost his footing completely and tumbled over the edge of the pit, his lightsaber flying from his hand. For an instant, he was falling, tumbling away into the dark. He reached out in desperation and caught hold of a metal rung just below the lip of the pit. There he hung helpless, staring up at a triumphant Darth Maul. However, Maul would not end the Jedi Padawan, who was truly a knight by his master's own admission.
Obi-Wan is ready.
I am ready to face the trials.
Our own counsel we will keep on who is ready.
He is headstrong, and he has much to learn of the living force, but he is capable. There is little more he can learn from me.
Darth Maul's overconfidence and a bit of bad luck ensured his demise. Another quote: Maul had been more than the equal of the Jedi he had faced and should have been able to defeat them easily. It was bad luck and chance that had led to his death, a combination that even the power of the dark side could not always overcome. After being sliced in two by an opponent far less skilled, far less powerful, someone who in Maul's eyes was completely beneath him, Maul's mind began to race. His hatred for this would-be hero was all he could think of, and this singular hatred for Obi-Wan actually kept him alive, and despite missing his lower half, he continued to press on. His body wound up in a trash receptacle and was cast away in a dump on Lotho Minor, where he would assemble a lower half as his sanity continued to wane. He spent years here as the Clone Wars raged on until he was found by his brother Savage, who brought him back to their mother on Dathomir. It was here where Talzin would restore Darth Maul's mind and his body, amplifying his power beyond what it was while he was Sidious's apprentice. With his sanity regained, and now having power like nothing he ever had before, he took his brother Savage as his apprentice and planned to overthrow his former master to become the new Sith Lord in the galaxy. This caused a massive disturbance in the Force that Dooku sensed, stating that Savage is growing more and more powerful each day and is a threat to his position, as well as noting something sinister was arising. Anakin also felt this disturbance in the Force, as did Yoda, who feared for Obi-Wan's life after the re-emergence of Maul. While Darth Maul takes Savage as his apprentice, his younger brother was not so willing to play second fiddle to the prodigal son. Savage challenged his brother, but was easily put in place by Maul. This is very important, as Savage, when pushed, is able to toss around Count Dooku and Asajj Ventress like ragdolls, and even force choke them simultaneously after being struck by Dooku's Sith Lightning multiple times. Sith Lightning is incredibly powerful, but also carries with it special properties that make it even more deadly. When the lightning strikes, it not only inflicts damage causing incredible pain, it actually drains one's life force, weakening them for a time. It damages both inside and out. To survive Dooku's full power Sith Lightning and then go on to toss the Count around is an incredible feat, not to mention Savage is strong enough to no-cell blaster fire and duel Obi-Wan and Anakin simultaneously and then completely topple them with a Force push, something they resist when Dooku does it.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
As I mentioned earlier, Dooku is afraid of Savage's growing power. He is a force to be reckoned with, but Maul put him in his place without even breaking a sweat. Throughout the Clone Wars, Darth Maul would duel various Jedi, but he was always targeting one in specific, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And we're going to spend some time here because a lot of people think that Obi-Wan is more powerful and more skilled than Darth Maul by the Clone Wars, which is not the case at all. In their first real duel against each other since Maul was sliced in two, they were each accompanied by another, Maul with Savage and Obi-Wan with Asajj Ventress. However, Maul and Obi-Wan were still able to battle each other one-on-one for a brief period, but even before we get to that, I'd like to discuss their meeting just prior. Maul sets a trap for Obi-Wan that the Jedi Master walks right into. Maul gives Kenobi the chance to test his mettle against his younger brother Savage, but Apprentice is able to handle Maul's light work, and Obi-Wan is easily overpowered by the younger Zabrak. At this point, Kenobi is knocked out, and as Superman says,
"If I wanted it, you'd be dead already."
This is very important to take note of, as Maul did not want to just kill Obi-Wan. He wanted to torture him, take everything that he loved, bring him to his lowest point just as Kenobi had done to him years prior. So in each engagement, Maul is holding back. He needs to capture Kenobi alive. So if Maul just wanted him to die, he could have just killed him after his younger brother beat him down and knocked him out. Maul even explicitly tells us this, but people still claim that Maul couldn't beat Obi-Wan, which was why Obi-Wan always escaped.
I will make sure you stay awake long enough to feel every single cut. Your death will be beyond excruciating. You will suffer as I have suffered.
So, in their first duel in years, you can plainly see this. While Asajj is getting thrown around like a ragdoll by Savage, Maul is goading Kenobi, taunting him, playing with his food, and Obi-Wan falls for it. He taps into the dark side, unbalancing himself, sacrificing some of the light for a temporary boost in power as he did all those years ago on Naboo, but again, it doesn't work. Maul is embarrassing Obi-Wan, who admits to Ventress that they're outmatched and need to flee.
We're outmatched.
You want to run?
I learned from watching you.
Even supplementary statements support this. But their next duel is what I'd really like to focus on. With what we just spoke about in mind, the fact that Maul wants to capture Obi-Wan alive, we can discuss the next duel. This time, Obi-Wan, fueled by the passion of just witnessing the death of Adi-Gallia, takes up her lightsaber and fights the Sith brothers 1 versus 2. During the fight, Obi-Wan spots a weakness in Savage and targets it, and I'll give Obi-Wan props here for sure. Great strategy.
Ooh, there it is again. There it is. Bad. Oh my goodness. Look at that left leg. That is a mess. Oh my goodness. That's it.
After buckling Savage, Obi-Wan amputates Apprentice's arm. Now worried for his apprentice and his younger brother, Maul can't really afford to screw around anymore, especially with the threat of the battle outside. To get his brother to safety, Maul ends the duel. Obi-Wan, with a scowl on his face, ready for more, but Maul just tosses him aside with no issue and then closes off Obi-Wan's path to return to the battle. Maul could have done this at any time, but again, he tends to play with his food, one of his fatal flaws. Something he never really learns to overcome. He does this in almost every duel where he's clearly superior in his first, second, and now third battle with Obi-Wan. Maul gloats just a bit too much, despite having, every right to. This is honestly Obi-Wan's best showing in a duel, in my opinion, especially considering how well Savage does against him in their previous encounters, and how well Savage does against the likes of Asajj Ventress, who is essentially Obi-Wan's equal, as well as Dooku, who is far superior to Obi-Wan. I mean, Savage, like I mentioned earlier, even duels Anakin and his master simultaneously. Maybe Obi-Wan should carry around two sabers more often, but anyway, Maul is superior to Obi-Wan. I don't think that's a question, it's just funny that people miss the clear context surrounding their battles. Now let's fast forward a bit to after Darth Maul had taken over Mandalore as their leader and was wielding the Darksaber. Darth Maul lured Obi-Wan to the planet to finally get his revenge, and after the Mandalorian warriors took down Obi-Wan's ship, Maul has had enough of the games, no more playing around. This time he overpowers and captures Obi-Wan himself without a second thought. While Obi-Wan was shaken up by the explosion, it's still impressive for Maul, as Obi-Wan has been beaten down just as much, if not more so, and still put up a fight against others, including Maul. However, this time, the Sith Lord simply doesn't allow it, despite Obi-Wan attempting a defense by drawing his blade. At this point, Maul and Savage have become a real problem for Darth Sidious, who was the current Sith Master at the head of the Rule of Two, the lineal heir of the Sith Order. When challengers arose, Sidious always had his apprentice deal with it, whoever it was. When Asajj was growing too powerful, he asked Dooku to take her out. However, with Maul, things were different. The brothers were growing more and more powerful each day, and it got to the point where Sidious considered Maul to be his rival, not just another would-be Sith that he could send Grievous or Dooku to handle. No, he went to Mandalore himself to challenge the Zabrak. Their duel was intense. Sidious is one of the best duelists to ever live by this point, and of course a cunning strategist. So of course, Savage is really out of his depth here. He's a non-factor. During the duel, Maul is able to keep Sidious's full attention, which allows Savage to get a hit in, and after dueling the brothers a bit longer, Sidious becomes exasperated and decides to remove Savage from the picture. After this, Maul pulls out two sabers, and the two duel evenly. Maul tags Sidious with a kick, and Sidious tags Maul back. The two go blow for blow until they are locked in a lightsaber struggle, and then Sidious overpowers Maul. While I admit Sidious is much more powerful than Maul in the Force, their dueling ability is relative, in my opinion. As stated in the StarWars.com databank, Maul attempts to avenge his brother's death, but simply cannot defeat Sidious's power. As I mentioned before, Sidious came to fight the brothers because they were becoming a real threat that he had to deal with himself. Otherwise, he would have just sent Dooku, as he had done throughout the entire Clone War. It's clear Sidious considered Maul much more than a match for Dooku, which he confirms to Darth Vader years later. He states Darth Maul was a true loss, while Dooku just served his purpose and was disposed of. He was never meant to become the Sith apprentice. There is a statement from the databank that says Sidious toyed with Maul. However, senior editor for StarWars.com clarifies that the statement was referring to Maul being tortured, not being toyed with during their battle. And there's even more to support this. So, Sidious mentions he has plans for Maul, but we never see those on screen. Maul is captured, and then by Season 7 is magically back on Mandalore. However, there's a lot that transpires between his duel with Sidious and his duel with Ahsoka. Darth Maul is taken by Sidious and then tortured by Dooku, who blasts Maul with Sith Lightning. As mentioned previously, Sith Lightning damages the body inside and out, it damages the mind, and literally weakens life. But Maul is not only able to take this for an extended period, he seemingly is unaffected by it. After he is rescued by his Mandalorian warriors, they're worried he may be unable to walk, but Maul shrugs it off, claiming he's indifferent to pain. Something his master Sidious undoubtedly instilled in him, as Dooku tried to do with Savage. Dooku's Sith Lightning has little effect on the powerful Darth Maul, and after being broken free, Maul easily dispatches Magna Guards, and with his soldiers, they capture Dooku and General Grievous. However, Sidious, posing as the innocent Senator Palpatine, makes the Jedi Council aware that Dooku and Grievous are battling with Darth Maul, so they dispatch Mace Windu, Aayla Secura, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Master Tip Lee to investigate. Meanwhile, Maul taunts Sidious, who expresses his disappointment in Dooku. Seeing this as an opportunity to replace his slain apprentice, Maul makes an offer to Dooku to become his new apprentice. I think it's fairly important, as Maul wouldn't make this offer to someone stronger than him. It's the very nature of the Sith to always have two. Maul knows how it goes. Dooku becomes his apprentice, who eventually tries to kill him. However, Maul is not worried about this in the slightest. This may be a symptom of Maul's overconfidence, but again, I think Maul is able to really gauge how powerful his opponents are time and time again, and really only loses in the battle because he thinks he's already defeated them, or he takes it easy on them. Dooku takes this opportunity to join Maul in the fight against the Jedi. Dooku opts to take on Obi-Wan and Tip Lee, while Maul goes up against the much more formidable duo, Mace Windu and Aayla Secura. More evidence that Maul is superior to Dooku. The Count regularly beats Obi-Wan and knows that he can do it again.
already dead.
Not only that, but Dooku has admitted to Mace Windu that he could not defeat the Master of the Order. Maul not only relishes a fight with Windu, but calls their duel a fair fight. Let's keep in mind that Mace is the second best duelist in the Jedi Order, not to mention that Aayla Secura was also there and is stated to be one of the Jedi Order's most skilled fighters. I think it's pretty damning for Count Dooku to offer up to fight Obi-Wan first. He's literally the first one to attack, which leaves Maul with the other, again, more powerful and more skilled duo to fight against. In this 1 versus 2 duel, Maul not only tags Aayla with a spinning hook kick, but simultaneously parries a blow from Windu. Then his Mandalorian soldiers get involved, launching a rocket toward the trio, which Maul deftly dodges, while Secura and Windu are hit and left unconscious. All of this just points to Maul being at or slightly above Sidious's level of dueling, who is far above Dooku, who is no match for Yoda, Mace, or Anakin. After escaping, Maul reveals that he merely used Dooku to help him defeat the 4 Jedi, but all along he understood that Dooku was still a loyal lapdog of Sidious, so he offers Dooku to his mother, who siphons some of his power to return, first possessing the Count. Sidious and General Grievous arrive shortly after to end Maul for good, and a battle begins. Maul takes on Grievous while his mother battles Sidious. Of course, Grievous is no match for Maul, who dispatches him easily, but Talzin struggles with the mighty Sith Lord Darth Sidious. Eventually, the two end up in a beam struggle while Dooku recovers from his possession. Dooku and Sidious combine their lightning to overpower Talzin, who pushes her son away. As Talzin is cut down by Grievous, Maul escapes to fight again. Now, there is a statement from StarWars.com that is frequently used to say that Maul is weaker than Dooku at this point, and the statement says, "The former allies clashed in a ferocious contest of dark side magic, but Talzin couldn't withstand the combined strength of Sidious and his minions. She urged Maul to flee and then fell to Grievous's blades." The logic here is that Talzin is equal to Sidious, but then Dooku helps while Maul assists his mother, but Talzin and Maul lose, so Dooku should be superior. I think this is pretty disingenuous when you look at what actually happened combined with what the statement actually says. Sidious and Talzin clash with their Force lightning, then Maul begins to help before Dooku ever does. Then Dooku begins firing his lightning as well. Since Dooku's lightning would hit them as Talzin was preoccupied with the most powerful Sith of all time, she creates a Force shield to block both of their attacks simultaneously. Meanwhile, Maul stops helping to shield his face. So now Talzin is protecting herself from Sidious and Dooku at the same time, albeit it is a weakened Dooku. Maul then urges his mother to flee with him, but she notices Grievous coming as well, and there is no time. If she dropped the shield, they would both be overwhelmed by Sidious, Dooku, and Grievous, so she pushes Maul away. It was a 2v3, where one of the three was arguably the most powerful Force user alive at the time. Not sure how this could be used against Maul when he has feats and statements that I've already shown to be above Dooku. Following the loss of his mother, Darth Maul returned to Mandalore, where he planned to lure Obi-Wan and Anakin, as Maul figured out that Anakin was to be Sidious's next apprentice, and he wanted to take that from his former master. While overconfident, Maul isn't stupid. He knows all about Anakin, and if his master wanted him, he'd surely be powerful. However, Kenobi is light work, so really, he'd just have to deal with Skywalker. But they never came. Instead, he was greeted by the former Jedi, Ahsoka Tano. In their first meeting, Maul is laying out the master plan, you know how villains do, but when the clones locate Ahsoka and attempt to save her, Maul casually tosses her aside and knocks her down with the body of a clone, as he did not yet want to fight her.
Not yet.
I think this shows Maul is on another level in and of itself, but let's get to their actual duel. Another instance of Maul not wanting to kill his opponent, but instead of goading his dueling partner into suffering with mental games, Maul attempts to lure Ahsoka to the dark side. Of course, we see Ahsoka's battle prowess as she battles Maul, who again is attempting to lure her to the dark side. She's able to keep up with him for the most part, despite being disarmed and overpowered at multiple points, and then she ends up winning. So, Not only was Maul holding back against her, he wasn't even at his best, while Ahsoka was at her best. Here are a couple key statements which put the duel into better context. Maul is not at his best when he's fighting to save the galaxy, and Ahsoka is at her best when fighting to save her friend. When Ahsoka pauses and struggles at the break in the fight, it was really meant to portray the toll it took on her to compete with Maul. I knew Maul had to lose the fight, but I didn't want to make it easy. I wanted it to take a lot out of Ahsoka to compete at his level. He is the stronger sword fighter, but he is very overconfident. Part of Maul's character is he underestimates his opponent and fails to overcome this flaw. So, Maul is captured, but eventually freed during Order 66, something that was necessary for Ahsoka to escape. Meanwhile, Maul marches through the clones who cut down thousands of Jedi that day, all without his lightsaber. Following this, Maul would go into hiding and become known as the Shadow to the Imperial Inquisitorius, eventually leading the Crimson Dawn and training Qi'ra to fight. He was so successful in this training that she could eventually duel evenly with Darth Vader, who had far surpassed Anakin's ability with the blade. Darth Vader regards her as formidable, which is nearly unprecedented for him to give a compliment to an opponent, and he also claims that her fighting style reminded him of Sidious's. Again, very high praise, as Sidious is like the best duelist ever. Maul would travel the galaxy searching for Sith artifacts and eventually wound up on Malachor after tracking down a Sith holocron. He crash-landed on the planet and was stranded there for years, eventually being tracked by the Eighth Brother and also coming into contact with the Jedi Padawan, Ezra Bridger. Maul would try to use Ezra and lure him to the dark side so he could open the temple on Malachor. But eventually he, Ezra, Kanan, and Ahsoka would be forced to battle the Inquisitors who tracked down Maul after all these years. While Ahsoka and Kanan were briefly struggling with the Inquisitors, Maul came in and began bullying them 1 versus 3. Dave Filoni explains the difference between Maul and the Inquisitors, stating, "That's why I call it a cheat. It's a simple way to do something that Maul actually does. Maul has far greater skills. This guy can just stand there and can have a helicopter blade." The showrunners of Rebels also give us more insight into Maul's power level at this time, stating, "Maul is a super dangerous threat. Because he has been trained for years, he's really adept. So he's kind of in the Vader realm. He's well trained by Sidious in all types of Sith ways." Putting Maul directly in the same space as Vader's power and ability. This statement is supported by his showing against Ahsoka in Rebels, where Maul is the one doing most of the work against the Inquisitors, and during his duel with Ahsoka, he turns his back on her, not worried about a potential attack from her. Additionally, StarWars.com sheds some more light on the difference between the two. Quote, "Kanan agrees to split the group up, the logical choice pairing Maul with the weakest of the Jedi," unquote. This shows us that Maul was considered the strongest of the group, as you would want the strongest member to be with the weakest. So, here we have Darth Maul, who was stronger than Ahsoka, who was blatantly relative to Darth Vader. And for more information about their power levels at this time, check out my videos on Ahsoka and Darth Vader, respectively. Maul had not turned a new leaf, however. He eventually attacked and blinded Kanan, who, while being directly amped by the will of the Force, was able to trip Maul, who fled the planet in search of his old rival, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who he did eventually find, and ultimately perished too. Now, you Obi-Wan fans out there may want to finally have me give your boy some credit here. He one-shot a character who is stated to be relative to Vader after all. He's as skilled, if not more skilled, than Sidious. He's shown to be on the level of Ahsoka, but sadly, I cannot do that. Maul wandered the desert for days, slowly going crazy, becoming dehydrated, weaker, his body being battered by the arid landscape. When he first begins his journey, he's in good spirits, he's healthy, but after finding Obi-Wan, his legs are damaged and his mind is broken. While Darth Maul was exceptional, with more potential than his mother who could rival Sidious, I think his former master put it best. He was not good enough. So with his mind broken, his body battered and damaged, he's just not able to anticipate Obi-Wan's stance change, and Obi-Wan was the more clever fighter in this instance. He was fighting someone who was not all there, after all. So while Darth Maul never got his revenge, his legacy was long-lived. His plans with the Fermata Cage nearly ended Sidious and Vader for good. Kira was not even a Force user, but was trained so well by Maul that she could duel Darth Vader. And even the young Skywalkers Luke and Leia were affected by Darth Maul. Leia could still sense his presence on Naboo decades after he dueled Obi-Wan. As for his skills and abilities, we've discussed how skilled Maul was throughout this video, but his mastery of the Force was something special. After all, he was one of the most highly trained Sith in the history of the Order. He had Force pushes, pulls, lift, drops, chokes, etc., but he also had mastery of the mind. He could manifest illusions, which he does to Ezra. Quote, "The visions are entirely manufactured by Maul, and they're manufactured by Maul as Maul gets closer to Ezra." Unquote. For all his incredible power and skill, Maul could not overcome one thing: himself. He was the only thing in his way the entire time. With the potential to surpass Sidious always being there, all he had to do was reach out and grab it, but he held himself back. He let grudges and vengeance cloud his judgment, and ultimately that left him dead at the hands of his bitter rival.
Tell me, is it the chosen one? He is. He will avenge us.
So, in summary, Darth Maul before the Clone Wars was above the level of Jedi Masters. After being found by his mother Talzin, she amplified his power, and he became even more powerful. He was able to easily defeat the likes of Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi time and time again, and I believe he was far more impressive than even Count Dooku. He was definitely the better duelist, and I think more powerful overall. By the time of the Imperial takeover of the galaxy, he was at the level of Darth Vader, who was far more powerful than the Jedi Masters of the Clone War era. So, throughout the series, Maul was consistently at the top tier, at the upper echelon of power within the Star Wars universe, but people seem to miss this time and time again. And that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you think of Darth Maul down in the comments. He's one of my favorite characters. I think his entire arc was beautifully done throughout the Clone Wars, and it's a shame we never got to see him come back in live action, as you guys all boycotted seeing Han Solo for some reason, even though that movie's really good and a lot of fun. That was kind of cringe on your guys' part, you know? And I blame you all for not allowing me to see Darth Maul in live action again. Anyway, I digress. Maybe he'll show up in the next Jedi Survivor game. That's all I've got for you guys. Remember to like and subscribe. It does really, really help us out. And remember the motto, it's Darth Maul over everything. And I'll see you guys next time.